The primary objective of a hospital in a major disaster is to save lives and care for the health of the citizens that have been affected. And of all the ESF-8 partners, hospitals rely on their buildings as the base where they provide this vital service.
The hospital is there to serve the community. They're there to provide for the health and welfare of the community. And so it's critical that the hospitals remain open, they remain operable. They're critical infrastructure to the community because their main focus is to serve the people of that community.
Like many enhanced disaster preparedness programs, the South Central Kansas Regional Hospital Emergency Preparedness Plan evolved out of the events surrounding 9/11. South Central Kansas has approximately 36 hospitals. The majority have fewer than 25 beds. Some have up to 99 beds. And a few in the metropolitan areas have more than 100 beds. Each hospital is responsible for its own emergency operations plan. The essence of the regional plan is to provide organized support to each other when there have been mass casualties or in the event a hospital facility has been damaged.
All disasters start local, and so they have to utilize what they have locally, and then they're able to reach out to the community and then to the region for additional resources to deal with all those patients coming through the door.
No matter what size the hospital, when disaster strikes, it challenges their operation.
Emergencies don't stop happening just because you have a disaster. In fact, they escalate a little bit.
It's often assumed that the hospitals can handle an unlimited number of patients, that they always have open beds available, that they always have staff they can call on, and that's not the case.
For example, in my community, we have a 24-bed community access hospital. What happens when they suddenly receive an influx of 15 patients, 10 which might be critical patients, they want them transferred.
And it's not just ambulances that will be bringing in victims. In a disaster, injured people get to the nearest hospital in any way they can.
Patients, victims will get into cars. The volunteer response people that are out there at the scene will put them in their cars, their trucks, their pickups. We had a wheat truck come in from Andover full of patients that were on doors instead of backboards.
An important part of hospital planning is having the ability to meet a sudden surge of victims who need immediate care.
You know, generally we have one patient come in the emergency room, they're admitted to the hospital. Well, this is 25 patients coming in at once and being admitted to the hospital. So how do you surge up to get the amount of space and people to take care of those patients? That's how we function differently.
The introduction of HICS, the Hospital Incident Command System, brought a new tool to hospitals across the country.
It isn't taking care of the patient, it is the management of a disaster. It brings in the entire hospital as players in this, what we call an all-hospital response. All the way from our senior leaders of the hospital down to our techs on the floor. Everybody has a role in HICS.
The other key component of the Hospital Incident Command System is that a common language has been developed which mirrors the incident command system used by other response agencies. This streamlines the way hospitals work with other ESF-8 partners.
Communication is the most important aspect of all disaster relationships. Our ability to communicate with each other and to be able to understand what's happening in the field versus what's happening in the voluntary agencies is essential for us to be able to run a very smooth operation in caring for patients and victims of disasters.
When a disaster occurs, EMS needs to know which hospitals are available, where patients should be transported, and what facilities have the appropriate resources.
The hospitals have software applications that we use that we can query to determine beds available, how many patients a particular hospital can take, and we can forward that information to our EMS partners who are responsible for transport of those patients to determine which hospitals can accept what patients. We also utilize radio communications throughout the region. All the hospitals and most all the EMS agencies have the ability to talk back and forth, and we can communicate patient information so that hospitals, again, are not surprised when those patients show up at their door.
The South Central Kansas Hospital Preparedness Committee has regular meetings that network representatives from area hospitals with key ESF-8 partners to discuss strategy and share information.
So it's critical that the regional hospitals stay involved in this planning and know what capabilities are as they evolve. And it's also critical that the region know what the capabilities are of those individual hospitals, because we can't do without them. And we need to know what their capabilities are and what they can offer to us in the event of a disaster.
Sometimes, in a disaster, the hospital itself has been damaged. That's when the Regional Hospital Emergency Preparedness resources are invaluable.
The South Central Hospital Preparedness Region has a number of resources available to not only hospitals, but other ESF-8 partners in the region. We have tents, we have inflatable structures that can provide temporary shelter at a disaster site. We do have some medical supplies that can either be used to provide care in a setting where we don't normally provide care, like a high school gym, or we can provide those supplies to an individual hospital to help them maintain care of individuals.
Hospitals can become overwhelmed in a disaster. Their ability to respond quickly and effectively is a direct result of how much they know and plan for a potential threat.
My hopes as a South Central coordinator is that we can come together and determine what all of our capabilities are across the regions from all of our ESF-8 partners, and from that begin to coordinate and collaborate our response so that our response to disaster is not helter-skelter, that our response is in a more coordinated fashion, and that we're not sending resources out there unneedlessly, but we are sending the resources that are needed.
It's important, very important for us to understand what each of us do and where we fit into the role. We've worked very hard over the years to try to figure out exactly what everybody does in our pre-planning, and without that, you're lost. You're lost in trying to figure out who you're going to call when you need a particular thing. I now know who I'm going to call, and that's what ESF-8 does for us.
To learn more about hospitals and their response capabilities in a disaster, please refer to the resources that are provided with this video.